Good evening. Dr. Jeremy Ellis here with Ellis Mobile Chiropractic, your no waiting room practice. And I've got a little bit of an interesting live for you tonight. I'm a member of a group whose mission basically is to help increase wellness and provide a greater degree of access to, designer healthcare for those who may not have had access to the very expensive type of healthcare in the past. Nevertheless, within this group, we try to keep ourselves accountable. We try to challenge ourselves. And one of the things we've got going right now, right in the heat of the summer, is a water challenge. So the individual organizing this is trying to encourage everyone to not only track their water, but then help everybody else track it as well. It's very interesting. Now, of course, as this has come about, there's a natural question about electrolytes and mineralization and vitamins and things like that. So I was asked to do a live specifically addressing what minerals are, how they affect you, and then how you can make sure you have an appropriate mineral content, especially during the heat of the summer. We're sweating our balls off out here. It's hot, and Texas isn't the only place that's hot, but it's hot here. That said, what are we going to do to make sure that we're utilizing the water that we're taking in efficiently? Okay, so I'll be honest, I'm a little bit nervous about this one because it's a big topic and I don't want to keep you guys longer than I have to. I want to get in, give you some valuable information, make sure you understand exactly what it is that you can do for yourself and how to look out for yourself in the best way possible without taking up too much of your time. And it can be a little bit of a confusing topic. So I'm going to try to go through this. Throw questions out at me if you need, and then if I'm not able to address them right here, I will follow up with you. And of course, as always, you can always message me for follow-up questions or anything that you need going forward. So because this is stemmed off from a water challenge, go Team U, right? Because this is stemmed off from a water challenge, one of the things that we have to talk about is what kind of hydration do you actually need, right? The general rule of thumb is half your body weight in ounces. So let's assume you're 100 pounds. It would be kind of nice. If you're 100 pounds, you generally need, on a basic rule of thumb, 50 ounces of water a day with moderate activity. However, if you're out in the blazing hot sun, sweating your balls off, you need more. If you work out to an insane degree, whether it's in the gym or the course of your normal job, you need more. If you're sitting at high altitudes in Colorado, you need more. It's not a static rule, but it's a good rule of thumb to go by, right? Basically, if you're thirsty, you're already a bit dehydrated, get water in you quickly. Okay, now, on to this. Most people, as I've come to find out, don't really have a good grasp of what minerals are. But we usually term them together, vitamins and minerals. In fact, we even see that there might be some minerals in our multivitamin that a lot of us will take. Okay, so the way to boil this down easiest, vitamins are a result of an organic process, right? There's something that your plants are going to create based off of life. So your vitamin C or your vitamin A or your vitamin K, all of those kind of things are going to come from plants, but they're going to be produced as a result of life. Your minerals, they're inorganic. They're your dirt. They're the building blocks of rocks. That's how you think of it. They're rocks. Because when we start talking about things like iron and copper and selenium and magnesium, that's exactly what they are. These are all things that we've heard about probably in chemistry class in high school, but that's what they are. They're the building blocks of rocks. So even though the plants, and that we may need them as building blocks to create organic life, they're not derived from organic life, they're the building blocks of it. And that's how you can think about your minerals, right? So as we go through here and talk about these, we're going to notice that minerals, we're going to classify them into a number of different categories. Think about it like this, right? All thumbs are fingers, but not all fingers are thumbs, right? So you're going to have some minerals in one category. You might even have some minerals in multiple categories. They're all minerals. It doesn't necessarily mean they're all electrolytes or they're all essential or something like that. So hopefully we'll go through and make a little bit of sense out of that. Okay, so let's start with one term that is pretty common. We'll talk about macro versus micro. And in fact, if you're a fan of Facebook and you scroll through, you'll often see like nutraceutical companies offering like micronutrients or macronutrients. It's a really fancy term. I mean, it's Latin, right? Macro is big, micro is small. So if you think about your macro minerals, they're the ones that your body needs in larger quantities. right? So if you don't have enough of those, then we're going to end up having problems because your body needs a lot of them to go through its organic processes. The micro ones, your trace minerals, those two terms could be used interchangeably, really, right? So your micro or your trace minerals are the ones that your body doesn't need in such great proliferation, but it does still require them. Okay, so that's the first thing to identify. It doesn't really make a big distinction, but when you start talking on this topic, even when you start talking with vitamins or other types of health food type stuff, you'll see these terms go back up over and over again. So just kind of keep that in mind: macro, large, micro, small, or trace small as well. Okay, so now we come to the term that most of us hear about when we start talking about this kind of thing: essential. Well, essential is exactly what it sounds like. If you don't have it, you die. Or at the very least, you get sick, right? We have to have a certain number of things. And there's a whole number of different kinds of nutrients that we need that are essential. So you might hear about essential fatty acids or essential minerals or essential amino acids, right? All of these things are required for life, and if we don't have them, we're going to end up in a bad way real quick. So your essential minerals are the ones you need in larger quantities. Some of your essential minerals are what we call the macro minerals, and some of them are the trace or the micro minerals. So what are your essential minerals? There's 16 of them. Of those, the macro ones are sodium, chloride. If I say those two things together, does it sound familiar? We'll come back to it if it doesn't. Potassium, calcium, phosphorus, manganese, sulfur, iron, and then you have your trace essential minerals, your iron, your zinc, your iodine, selenium, copper, manganese, fluoride, chromium, and molybdenum. That's a fun one to pronounce. Say that 5 times fast and I'll be impressed. I can barely say it once. Those are your essential ones. If you don't have those, we're going to have problems. And these are going to help with things like heart function, nerve function. And what am I always preaching about? Proper nerve function. They are there to help make your body work better. You're not going to have good bones. How many people have heard calcium gives you strong bones and muscles? Not really true, but kinda, right? But we have a number of these minerals that are required for proper bone function, proper muscle growth, proper heart function, proper nerve conductivity. They also play an essential role in maintaining and regulating your internal metabolic pH. These are things that we have to have, okay? Those are the 16. At some point here, probably this evening, I'm gonna post that on my site as well. So if you're not following me here live, go to my site, Ellis Mobile Chiropractic, like the page. You'll be able to pick those 16 minerals up, so you'll be able to know exactly what they are and refer back to that. That said, now we've got a question about electrolytes. Probably heard about this a ton. So if you're drinking lots of water, you want electrolytes. Or if you don't have enough electrolytes, what is that? Well, if any of you ran the little, I don't know what, elementary school science experiment where you stick a needle and a penny in a lemon or a potato and you create a circuit and make a light go off, it's the same thing. It's any kind of mineral that's required to actually maintain or conduct an electrical charge within the body. Now, maybe that's an electrical charge inside of the cell, or maybe it's an electrical charge between the inside and the outside of a cell. It's required, your body operates off of electricity. That's what your nervous system does. So if your nervous system doesn't maintain an electrical charge, you can't get signals from your brain to your foot. You won't walk. Your heart's not going to beat. Your liver's not going to filter. Your pancreas isn't going to keep you supplied with enough insulin and glucagon to keep the body working. We're electrical beings, right? So maintaining that electrical function is absolutely essential. Now, the 16 essential minerals that I gave you, they're not all electrolytes. Again, fingers and thumbs, right? So the electrolytes are your sodium, your chloride, your magnesium, your potassium, calcium, and bicarbonate. Even though bicarbonate's technically not an essential mineral, it's in the list. But those are all things that help maintain an electrical charge and are very, very, very important for life, and we don't want to forget those. So we're going to come back to some of that here in just a second because I've got some information on what you can do where you're going to want to remember some of that. Okay, so where do you get minerals from? Well, you probably guessed it, from your food, right? They are primarily derived from plant-based sources. Right? We get it from the ground. The plants soak all this stuff up from the ground and they provide it to us in our food. Well, we also get it from animal sources of nutrients. Why? Because what do animals eat? They eat plants. A whole lot of them do, right? So when they eat the plants, they get the nutrients, they get the minerals. We eat the animals, we also get it, right? We're going to come back to that topic here in a second. Sometimes that's even a better way to get some of your minerals than directly from plants. For all you vegetarians and vegans, hold on with me. There's a reason I say that. You can get everything you need from plants. It just might be a little bit more difficult sometimes. That being said, there's also other ways that we can sometimes get some of these minerals. So for instance, cast iron skillets. If you cook with a cast iron skillet, one of your essential minerals, trace even though, is iron. You will be able to absorb some iron through other sources like that. I'm not asking you to go out and chew on an iron bar. Please don't do that. Ruin your teeth. Dentists would hate me. Nevertheless, there are a number of different sources, primarily plants, animals, and then a few other sources as well. Okay. Now, why do we talk about supplementing with minerals or even supplementing with vitamins? Can't we get all this through our normal diet? Not really. Now, it's ideal to get everything that you need through your normal diet, to eat the appropriate amount of vitamins, the appropriate amount of fruits, the appropriate amount of vegetables, healthy meats, fats, nuts, seeds, all of that kind of stuff. It would be great if we could do all that. So why can't we? Well, there's a couple of problems. One, our soil is essentially depleted of a proper mineral content. Well, why is that? Well, we don't really practice good farming practices. Now, I'm no farmer, and if farmers want to argue with me, that's all right, you can do that. But the simple reality of it is, because we're a production society, produce, we don't ever allow our fields to truly rest and replenish. And remember, minerals are your dirt. They're building blocks of rocks. It's not something you can just throw a couple chemicals out there and replace. You got to allow the organic material from the plants to decay back into there, allow it to rest, build back up some of those that mineral content, and then start the process all over again. So we don't rotate our fields and we don't rotate our crops. Typically, a corn farmer is going to farm corn and corn and corn. So it never has a chance to rotate a different kind of crop out there to be soaking up a different subset of those minerals. So we end up having problems there. Now, to make a bad situation even worse, modern farming practices use something called glyphosates. So if you've ever been to the store and gone to the pesticide or herbicide aisle in Walmart, you see something called Roundup. Now, you spray that on the little grass and the weeds coming up from the cracks in your driveway. Works great, kills them every time. Here's the problem. We do that same thing to our farming crops, and we crop dust these things with large amounts of this. Okay? Now, for any of you who don't understand a little bit about this, it's a really bad idea for a whole number of reasons I'm not going to go into right now. That's a much larger topic, right? Roundup, or glyphosate, was produced by the Monsanto company in 1976, I believe. I believe a couple years ago, it was actually sold to Bayer, so Bayer now produces it, the creator of aspirin. It's funny how all those kind of things tie together. That being said, what this does is it actually binds minerals to the ground and prevents those minerals from being soaked up into the plants, from being drawn up into the plants. So not only do we have an essential depletion of our mineral and our soil content, but now we're making it worse by preventing that soil, or preventing those plants from actually being able to access the minerals that are in the soil. So we've just taken a situation from bad to worse, not to mention all of the other really, really nasty negative health effects that these glyphosates have. Maybe we'll talk about that in a future live talk, but for right now we're going to move on before I get on too much of a rant. Nevertheless, because this is the situation, we end up having depleted mineral content in our soil, depleted ability for those plants to soak it up, and now the mineral content that's actually in our fruits and our vegetables is much, much, much less. Now again, keep this in mind, when the animals eat these same plants, they don't have as much mineral content either. So when we eat the animal proteins, when we eat the animal organs and the glands, they're not going to have as much of that mineral content either. So we just kind of suffer all the way around, and that's where some of the supplementation comes in that people talk about so often. Okay, now before we go on to the supplementation, there is a quick question. There is a quick thing that we need to talk about: bioavailability. What is bioavailability? And you can hear this in topics from vitamins, of course, minerals, all other kinds of nutrients. And it simply means how available is that substance to be absorbed by your body and ready to be used for any kind of natural process, right? If you eat calcium made from rocks, you're probably not going to be absorbing too much. If you eat it from eggshells, that's going to be a little bit different. If you eat it from calcium from seashells, that's going to be different still. How available is it for your body to take and use for its intended purpose, right? Now, obviously, the best way to get a bioavailability is to use the whole food, right? You're going to get a better quality of vitamin C from an orange than you will from ascorbic acid. Now, you're going to have the cofactors and the enzymes all built into that orange, so the orange is going to provide you with everything you need, not only for the vitamin C, but also the way to process that vitamin C. The problem is, if you're trying to treat whooping cough by high doses of vitamin C, which is a thing, you can look it up, we can talk about that later too. Not really something to be too terrified of. That said, if you're trying to treat whooping cough or a number of other things with high dose vitamin C, you can't eat that many oranges. So you got to have some substance there. And identifying the type of supplementation or the type of food and its bioavailability is a whole different thing. So keep that in mind when you're going off and buying supplements. If you're going to Walmart and buying the $5 supplement, it's probably not going to do anywhere near as good for you if you're spending more money. And this is one of those areas that, unfortunately, what you get, what you pay for is what you get. So not to say that spending a lot of money is a guarantee of quality. It is something that you want to take into consideration, though. Okay, now when we come to supplementation, we got a couple of things to talk about. How do we actually get this stuff into our system? Well, I pointed out a moment ago something called sodium chloride. Those are two of your essential minerals. And if it doesn't sound familiar, think table salt. That's exactly what sodium chloride is. It's table salt. It's stuff that we eat all the time. Now, unfortunately, a lot of us have gotten scared off of table salt because over the years, we've had medical institutions that have told us time over time how bad salt is for you. It increases blood pressure. It gives you a higher risk of heart disease. And all that is really, for the most part, just simply untrue, right? In fact, there's mountains of evidence now that even suggest starving ourselves from salt causes more blood pressure issues, causes more heart disease issues than actually having too much, right? You can debate me on that later. That's just the way it is. That said, right, the best way to start getting more minerals into your diet, salt. Now, there's a caveat here. There's good salt and there's not so good salt. How do we tell the difference? It's color. If it's white, it's pretty much trash. Because what we do, I'm not entirely sure why we think we're so much smarter than nature in this way, but we'll take salt and we'll bleach it all out. We'll process all the good stuff out and then maybe add some other extra stuff in that's not so great. Don't know why we do this exactly, but we do it. So if it's white, it's almost categorically been processed and you don't want it, because salt is not only sodium and chloride, but it's also a natural binder of many of your other trace minerals. Again, it's not just sodium and chloride you want, but you also want some of those trace or those micro minerals, and salt is an excellent source of that so long as it's natural and unprocessed. So how do you do this? You want to find something with color to it. The easiest thing to find is pink Himalayan. And in fact, I have some right here, right? You can get this anywhere, Kroger, Walmart, Aldi. I get this at Sprouts. It's like $3 for an entire pound. This is half a pound, right? COVID, they're not allowing you to actually dip out of the economy bins anymore, so they prepackage it for you. It's actually one of the convenient things about this whole thing. That said, you can get it anywhere. If you get it in the economy bins, you're probably going to be able to get it less expensive. If you get it in little shaker bottles, it's probably going to be more expensive, but something with color to it. You can search out all over the internet and get all kinds of salt from around the world. They'll all have different flavor profiles based on the type of mineral content that they have in them. But pink Himalayan is just simply the easiest to get. Okay, how much do we need? General rule of thumb, 1/8 of a teaspoon per 8 ounces of water a day. Now, rather you just salt that over your food, you just have that kind of measured out in your head, you salt it over your food, rather you put it in your water and drink it, rather you just take 1/8 of a teaspoon and kick it back, very flavorful, watch out, right? that's the kind of salt that you want to take in so that you can keep up with the amount of water content that you got in your body. Okay, so that's a general rule of thumb. You can start that now. Now here's the thing. As Americans, we do have a very high degree of sodium in our diets, right? So if you're eating lots of prepackaged foods, lots of processed foods, you're eating out all the time, fast food, or even in restaurants, there's gonna be a high degree of sodium. The best thing to do if you're worried about that, just cut out some of that other sodium. Start eating cleaner, start eating a little bit more naturally, start cooking your own food, and you can use real, pure, good salt instead of having all the trash sodium that's out there. So general rule of thumb, keep that in mind and use that. The other thing that you can use to supplement with is, this is always a hotbed topic with my friends, is coconut water. I love this stuff. I really do. I honestly, genuinely love it. Not just this brand. I actually usually get the generic Kroger brand. But coconut water, not only is it natural, but the thing is it also has a lot of your electrolyte minerals. In fact, naturally, it's got manganese, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and calcium all in here. And in fact, when you start taking a look at how much potassium this has more potassium than 4 bananas. So if you're ever getting muscle cramps and you're like, oh, I need a banana, it's a whole lot easier to get this, right? The studies that are out on this are absolutely incredible. If you don't like the taste, okay, sorry, I don't know what to tell you, right? But this is a hell of a lot better than any kind of sports drink you're going to get out there. Keep in mind, your things like your Powerades, your Gatorades, it's essentially just a soda without the carbonation. It's really just trash stuff. So if you can avoid that, all the better. You know, I guess you get a pinch if you didn't want coconut water and you try to avoid the Powerades and the Gatorades. I guess maybe you could try a Pedialyte, but I mean, who wants to? I like the coconut water. Okay, there are also a number of other types of supplements out there that you can get on the market. These are a couple of examples, right? This one comes from Longevity, right? I like the product in general, but I don't see any studies behind it, so I'm not entirely sure exactly how wonderful this is. I've seen some pretty good results with it through things like nail bed testing and things like that. I like it, right? That being said, I also got this at Sprouts earlier today just to show you. This is something that you can just drop in your water. Now, this is trace minerals only, so it doesn't have your macro minerals or your macro minerals from your essential group. So it's just the trace minerals. So it does leave me with a little bit of a question. How effective would this be if you're really trying to grow or if you're really trying to do a more collective type of mineral supplementation? Nevertheless, you can find some of this stuff at health food stores if this is the way you want to go at it as well. All right, so all that to say, don't let me scare you away from trying to eat healthy and trying to eat clean. Yes, we do have a problem with some of our farming practices. We don't have anywhere near as much nutritive value in our plants, our vitamins, our vegetables and our fruits as we did 100 years ago or maybe even 50 years ago. Nevertheless, there's a whole lot of reasons why you still need to and want to eat clean, and we would rather have the whole fruits where we can, or the whole foods rather, where we can, to give ourselves the best advantage for absorbing and utilizing the nutrients that they have. Okay, so I see, does it provide iodine? No, there is no iodine. I'm assuming that you're talking about the coconut water or one of these. So you'll see iodine in a lot of different things. I've got a whole nother thing on iodine altogether. Please don't just run out to the health food store and get potassium iodide. Really a bad idea. It's not helpful for the vast majority of cases. It's really only helpful for radiation poisoning. Other than that, potassium iodine is essentially a poison to the body. Nascent iodine or atomic iodine is the way you want to supplement if you're supplementing specifically with that kind of thing. Okay, specifically the salts. So the question is there salt attached to the iodine, rather attached as a trace mineral to the salt? The question is, depends on the salt and where you're getting it from. So far as I'm aware, I don't know that there's any iodine specifically attached to this. Now, a few generations ago, we noticed that people were forming goiters around a belt within the U.S., and that's because there was an iodine deficiency, so the thyroid was growing larger and larger and larger because the body wasn't getting enough iodine. So if you ever walk down the store, the salt aisle, and you see that there's salt and it says iodized, they added iodine into the salt to help prevent and fix the goiter issue because there was such a deficiency with iodine throughout a big part of America. And that fixed it to a big degree. They started adding iodine to everything, and it was great until they stopped. So a lot of things that they added iodine to, like breads and pastas, of course salt, a whole number of things that we would eat, they actually stopped supplementing with iodine and for some reason started supplementing with boron, which is completely ridiculous because it's actually a halide competitor to iodine and it's a carcinogen. So go off on a little bit of a tangent there, but there will be iodine attached to some salts. You'll just have to do a little bit of research to find out what kind of salts from around the world have the greatest iodine content. I hope that helps. If anyone has any questions on this topic, really, or any topic, please do message me. Let me know. I want to be a resource and a tool here for you as we're going forward, not only on this challenge, making sure we're drinking enough water, but helping to increase and boost everyone's health, wellness, function, and ability throughout life. So I'm going to say good night. Have a wonderful evening, and y'all stay healthy.